Toastmasters Successful Club Series presentation on closing the sale. What reaction or emotion does this phrase elicit for you? Uncomfortable? Manipulative? You're not alone. Nevertheless, the responsibility to bring in new club members belongs to every single one of us here. Our club would not survive if we didn't have a regular influx of new members. Could you imagine what this room would look like if our membership had shrunk so much that we just had Arnie and Carl here with nobody to film and no meeting to evaluate? That would be a sad picture. I understand about being uncomfortable around selling, and so I am going to invite you to consider a different approach. Leadership, passion, influence. These are some of the attributes that we have developed and continue to hone at Toastmasters. And I suggest that these are 3 of the attributes that you should consider applying when you're talking to somebody about Toastmasters. Every week we come to these meetings and we take on new roles, we take on new responsibilities. We might even do a prepared speech. And every single week we come here and we're excited about what we're doing. We're motivated and we're passionate about it. Why is that? Well, it's because we see ourselves growing and getting better and better at these things. We see that the goals that we set, we're starting to achieve. And there's nothing more motivating than the sense of achievement. So leadership, that's the first one. I want to talk about leadership here for a second. Leaders are other-centered because why? Every single one of us is tuned to the radio station WIIFM, right? What's in it for me? So when you talk to somebody about Toastmasters, it's essential that you ask questions before you talk. What's important to them? What's gnawing at them that they want to be better at? What are their goals, if they have some? You need to listen to those and remember them because you're going to need to refer to them again later. The other area that I think is really important to ask some questions about is their perception of Toastmasters. What do they think Toastmasters is? Because there's a very good chance that you need to correct that perception and build on that perception. The second and third attribute I mentioned are passion and persuasion, or influence, persuasion or influence. And if you look at a lot of the projects that we have here in Toastmasters, they're suggesting that we use the persuasive approach. This is something you're good at. You already can do this. So I suggest that you use these skills when you're talking to somebody. Let's talk about the first area, sharing improvements. What are some of the improvements that people make or that you've made since you joined Toastmasters? Well, the first one, speaking abilities. Hopefully you've reduced the number of ahs and ums and talks. And maybe you've become a little bit more succinct in your speaking. Maybe you've even used some vocal variety and a couple of gestures. It makes it interesting for people to listen to you. Perhaps leadership is an area that you find that you've really grown in. You're taking on new roles and responsibilities. You come in here, you do those new things that stretch you, that make you feel better, and you walk out here going, I did that. I can do that, and maybe I can take on something else. And maybe you have. and that becomes part of your story. What else have I done in my personal life or in my job now that I've taken the lead at Toastmasters? How am I taking the lead in my job? And if there's something there, you can share that with them. Another area is social skills. Some people who come to Toastmasters are really, really shy. And just talking to another person gets them all flustered and red and all those sorts of things. So if that's you, you can talk about that, how you've learned to go to a meeting where you don't know people. Put your hand out, shake hands with individuals, greet them, look them in the eye, welcome them. Networking, talk about that. And the fourth area of abilities and skills that we learn here that you can talk about if it's meaningful for you is building that confidence and self-esteem. Think of all the ways that you have now applied that in your job. Maybe you've gotten a promotion because of it. Maybe you're leading a team that you weren't leading before. Maybe you have a more visible project. Maybe you had a better performance review. All of those things. Maybe your spouse likes you better. All of those things can really help in talking to somebody about Toastmasters. So, if this individual sounds interested, what's next? The meeting, coming to a meeting. And our meeting is where showtime occurs. This is our product. This is our biggest product. This is what we sell to people. Forget the word sell, excuse me. But this is what we are, okay? A well-run meeting that's enjoyable and works like clockwork like that, wow, that can be really contagious. And so we want to present that. But in order to present that, that means that our meeting needs to go really well. So let's talk about meeting standards a little bit. Beginning and ending on time. Well, number one, we can't begin on time unless everybody's here. They've already sat down, they've got their name tag, they know what they're doing, they've given their book or gotten a book from somebody that they're evaluating. That takes a few minutes. I would suggest that you don't consider getting here at 12:10, that you think about getting here at 12. And then if you're a few minutes late, you're ready to get started and the Toastmaster can do his or her job. Officers do their jobs. Every officer has a job at every meeting. Membership, to talk about new members and help you if you have any need for how to get new members. Our VP of Education, helping you get through your manual or maybe talk about mentors. Our secretary takes down all the minutes of every single meeting. Our treasurer takes in the money and tells us what's going on in regard to that. And our president begins and ends every single meeting. So that's essential that our officers do their job. The smooth pace, that comes from the Toastmaster of the day, making sure that things are running properly. And the enthusiasm, if you have a job at a meeting, you still need to be engaged. And so when we all show up, we're all part of making this a really fun meeting and being thoroughly engaged in the meeting. And finally, sticking to manual speeches. Toastmasters really wants us to do this. We do this most of the time, but occasionally we want to accommodate one of our members who's going to be doing an outside speech. And if it doesn't fit into a manual, we usually will accommodate them. But we really want to stick to manual speeches. So these are the standards for our meeting, and all of us can contribute to making that a success. Okay, the meeting's over. What do we do now? If you've brought a guest, let that guest know, come to the meeting, you're going to be here from 12 to 1:30. Because you want to build in that time. You don't want them rushing out the door, and you don't want to rush out the door. This is the time to close the sale, as Toastmasters would say. This is the time to talk to them about why it's really good to become a member, okay? So the first area, compare. What are we going to compare? The value of Toastmasters to the value of a training program or course or communication seminar? Well, those seminars are $2, $3, $4, $500 for one day. That's 2, 3, 4, or 5 years of Toastmaster dues. How's that comparison? What about the materials we get? What about the videos that you can go and look at yourself? Hi, you can look at yourself on the video after every single presentation that you've given. If you go take a course, a one-day course, you gonna get that? Probably not, unless it's maybe a $1,000 course. So that's something that you can sell to them about comparing the value. Lose is the L. They're going to lose the ahs, the ums, the fear of public speaking. There are a lot of things that they're going to lose that they're then going to gain a lot from. The O stands for, I use the word obstacles. Toastmasters uses opinions. I like obstacles because after the meeting, of course, they do give their opinion when the Toastmaster asks them what they liked or saw at the meeting. But this is an opportunity for you to say, what are the obstacles to joining Toastmasters now? What are your obstacles? If you know them, you've asked a question, now you have an opportunity to overcome those obstacles with them, whatever those obstacles might be. S is for story. There might have been a speaker that you heard while you had your guests here that's improved so much. You want to tell that story. Or maybe something else happened in the meeting and they're not going to catch all those things. You want to extricate that and talk about that story. Or maybe something happened in the meeting that reminds you of a good story to tell them. Remember, you know what their goals and desires are, so you can make it meaningful for them by linking that story to something that's important to them. WIIFM, right? And finally, expect. What are they going to get out of? What should they expect? Well, the first thing that they're going to expect is that they're going to achieve those goals that they've been thinking about for years. The second thing is what we're going to give them. And that's where the VP of Membership comes into place in completing this process. The VP of Membership will work with you to communicate to them what they can expect from us. For example, facilitating the application process, reviewing what gets sent to them. So they get that starter kit with the 2 manuals. They also get the magazine every month. How can they participate? Now that they've decided to join, what's the first meeting for them? How should they be prepared for that meeting? Table topics, or maybe a role such as a vote counter, something like that. The treasurer is there to talk to them about paying their dues, or how they might do that in a way that's convenient for them. And then the VP of Education is ready to talk about mentors. So if you know you're bringing somebody to a meeting, you might even send an email to the officers so they're all on alert and ready at the end of the meeting to assist you in closing that sale. You can do this. You can, with all of your skills, the skills that you have of passion about Toastmasters, about leadership, about persuasion, all these things that you learn right here in Toastmasters. You can make this happen. You can be so influential that you get that individual to the meeting. And you know what? The rest of the people sitting around the table here, your Toastmaster team, they will create the situation so that that person says yes.